Good morning. So, I'm a Jamaican. Well, I was born and raised in Jamaica. And the amazing thing is, or not so amazing, whenever someone notices for the first time, maybe by hearing my accent, that I'm a Jamaican, they have all kinds of assumptions about me. I don't think it's unusual, no matter who you are. People imagine and think and just try to create sort of stories about you just from knowing something, anything about you. So a couple of years ago when I was in Denmark and just walking on the street, someone heard my accent and asked if I was from Jamaica, and I said yes. And of course, immediately we started talking about reggae and Bob Marley, because that's what Jamaicans do. Now, whenever I'm elsewhere in the United States, and people learn that I live in New York, they also have all kinds of assumptions about the way I live and about what New York is like. So they immediately start sharing or asking about these rude crowds that press in on you in the subways or in Times Square. And, you know, we have to sort of help them to sort of think outside the box of these stereotypical images they have. Now, I have lived most of my life in Long Island, on Long Island in New York. And so I live a sort of strange existence when I visit Jamaica, because I am not really a visitor, but I'm still not really a resident. And so I walk this fine line, having my circle of friends over these decades of being away from Jamaica. That circle of friends have shrunk and shrunk. So whenever I'm introduced to someone, I'm introduced as Donald's sister, Madge and Lloyd's daughter, Jackie's cousin, Donna's friend, and people make assumptions just based on those relationships as well. I know that if you're a parent, you know how this works. You take your child to school and you have no name. You are Justin's mother, Elizabeth's father. That's how it works, right? And I'm not sure, sometimes we like to disconnect from some of those associations. Sometimes we celebrate the fact that we are related to others. Our history, our association, our jobs, or whatever, they matter. We don't want to put them away, even if we'd like to reinterpret them, even if we'd like to break out. They matter. And what we really do not want to happen is for people to put us in a box so that our hopes and dreams are limited and expectations are sort of lowered because of who we are. People can't imagine us being anything else than what they think we should be. This is what Jesus encounters in this story that we heard this morning. This is the third of the Bread of Life stories. Remember, Father Christopher said we're going to have a series of those. We have about 2 more to go before we finish this, this series of Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. The first one actually was the feeding of the 5,000. And so Jesus once more says, I am the bread of life. And the people listening to him say, just wait a minute here. This is an audacious claim. What are you talking about? We know you. You cannot be this bread of life come down from heaven. You were born in Nazareth. Some of us know you from you were a little kid. Your mother and father, we're ordinary people. Mary, Joseph the carpenter. What is this thing about coming down from heaven? And Jesus tells them, wait a minute, stop complaining. And he, instead of sort of soothing their sort of, anxious nerves, he tells them more about being this bread of life. He is sent from God. He has seen God. He actually claims to be like God, having been taught about in the scriptures. And he can give you eternal life. He's actually going to give his life for your sake. And the people say, wait a minute. Because not only do we know that you're from Nazareth, you're an ordinary person just like us, your parents were ordinary people, but we know a thing or two about God. Because you see, the Jews in John's Gospel are Jewish religious leaders. It's not talking about the whole Jewish community, but about a set of Jewish leaders who opposed Jesus. They have been studying the scriptures for a long time. We know about God. There is one God. You can't be God as well. You know, God is powerful and mighty. God isn't going to die. They are so put off by what Jesus said, by the box they have Jesus in, that they cannot hear or think or envision something different, something new, that God was doing something new in their midst. And I wonder, what box have we put Jesus in? Because we know a thing or two about Jesus. We know about God. Do we limit Jesus at work in our lives, in our church, in our world, by what we think he should be like, the way he should work? Do we understand that this God that we serve, this Jesus who came down, this Jesus who sustains us, who says, I am the bread of life, is always at work doing something new? That where we might think God is a God of justice and judgment, God is a God of mercy and compassion. Where we might think that God is exclusive, calling a people to himself, God is inclusive, welcoming everyone into his midst. Where we might think that God calls us into worship in this place, God pushes us out that door and says, meet me on the streets of New York. Take me with you. I am the bread of life. I can sustain you at all times. I am doing a new thing, but you don't need to be afraid because I'm going with you. I will be there with you. It is not always easy to break out of that box, but Jesus demands it of us. It is our call to think that our God is doing a wonderful new thing, and he calls us to join it with him in it. Amen.
Amen.